By the middle of next year, the flats of Kooragang Island could see Australia's largest wind-driven generator in action. 4 times the power and twice the height of this 10-year-old generator at Malabar in Sydney. Energy Australia will spend $1.5 million on the 40-metre high generator in response to 4% of its users signing up to pay a premium averaging $50 a year for a proportion of their power to come from renewable resources. In the long term, Energy Australia says it may prove viable to develop a wind farm, multiple generators taking a share of the power grid from the present coal-fired stations. The exact site of the generator has not been settled, but Kooragang is the favoured area. The unit will be imported from either Holland or Denmark. Jim Sullivan, NBN News.
John Cosmina was cooking up a storm this afternoon, a meal for the breakers full of carbohydrates and plenty of other ingredients. The recipe?
It's a secret. It's the wog blood in me coming out. It's an old recipe.
A quick taste test and the breakers gave the concoction the thumbs up. Just the right energy for tonight's Johnny Walker Cup match against Marconi.
Hopefully, because it will be a tough game, and we've only had 48 hours to recover from last Wednesday. And Marconi have had a week, almost a week, to get over their game against Sydney United last weekend, and they'll come out with a full squad.
The Breakers have won their last 2 matches in scintillating style over northern New South Wales. In basketball, Newcastle will try and start its late charge to the NBL finals tonight. The Falcons face sudden death in Townsville and must also beat Brisbane by 15 tomorrow to keep in the hunt. That will set up a final round showdown with competition leaders Melbourne at the Newcastle Entertainment Centre, which would then determine the 8.
It's a year to the day since fire ripped through the Young People's Theatre at Hamilton, destroying costumes, sets and the stage. Although the building was lost, the spirit of the organisation, built over 40 years, remained strong. Singing from the ruins, some of the theatre's 200 young performers heralded a new beginning. Operating from a makeshift base, they've raised enough money to make a start on a new building. The Minister assisting the arts, Bob Debus, today turned the first sod to start the project.
Yes, we've had a terrific effort from everyone involved with the theatre, plus the council, plus our local residents. The whole of the community of Newcastle's got behind us, and we've got here through their hard work. It's been no individual, just a great group effort.
When the theatre was gone, the students felt lost. It's like a second home to us, and so the new building is more than just the bricks. It's going to be a new home, and we can be together again and perform on stage.
Within a year, the Young People's Theatre will be staging its own performances again, but the fundraising continues. Known as the cosmopolitan capital of the Hunter, Hamilton's Beaumont Street was the place to be for the sights and sounds of Fiesta in full swing. Organised by the Ethnic Communities Council, it's a chance for people from ethnic backgrounds to celebrate and share their history and customs. The outdoor cafe crowd flocks to Fiesta for the food and entertainment. It's now so popular the celebration has grown from a 1-day to 5-day event. A highlight of the festivities was the parade, more than 20 floats reflecting the diverse cultural makeup of the community.
Lift carrying capacity towards the 70 million tonne mark from our current 52 million tonnes.
An extra 22,000 hectares will become National Park at the Barrington Tops. That's an increase from 50% National Park to 85%. It's a move that has boosted environmentalists.
We've now got 85% has been declared wilderness, which is excellent.
And with that extra National Park, there are cutbacks to logging. Towns like Dungog, Bulahdelah and Gloucester will be dramatically affected. Some logging areas will be cut by as much as 50%.
If the resource supply is cut by 50%, obviously that business can't be sustainable on that level.
Phones at the Timber Millers lobby group, the Forest Protection Society, have been ringing off the hook. Exact figures are still unclear on which areas will be cut. Even the environmental groups are cautious about today's announcement.
New York is one of the oldest clubs in the United States, its history well reported in baseball archives. The Mets are best known for their team of 62, not that they were outstanding, instead quite the opposite. In fact, the 1962 side is generally considered to boast the worst record in league history. The memory of 40 wins and 120 losses still hangs in the cellar as an achievement the club would rather forget. There have been better days though. Back in the winners' circles of late, the Mets are again enjoying success, and one of the beneficiaries will be the Hunter Eagles. The clubs have signed an affiliation agreement. New York will send a pitching coach and 4 players, a left and a right-hand pitcher, a catcher and an outfielder who was their number 1 pick in the draft in 1994.
He's the son of Mookie Wilson, who was an absolute legend with the New York Mets. If he plays half as good as his father will, we're in for a great season.
The Eagles ranks can expect another boost. Talks are well underway with a Queenslander who's signed with the Atlanta Braves.
He is an Australian, so therefore we don't have to count him as an import. So if we can sneak him too, and I believe that's pretty close, and one other guy out of Sydney, that just about fills the tank up.
The Mets and Eagles are both talking long term. The affiliation may be extended to 5 years if it's successful.
The timber industry was in shock today. Yesterday's announcement by Premier Carr has left sawmillers with nowhere to turn. Some mills have had their allocated forest areas cut by half.
It means closure for us, really, and a disaster for the town.
The Dawneys have been working the Bulahdelah area for more than 50 years. 90 people will lose their jobs. Local shopkeepers are angry. The timber workers keep their businesses alive.
It's got to send some of them to the wall, especially if they've gone into the business borrowing money, loans and things like that. I can't see how they can survive.
It's estimated through Bulahdelah, Gloucester and Dungog, up to 300 timber workers could be on the dole.
I'm actually sickened by this result. 50% cutback in resource allocation. Who can survive on that?
Green groups maintain it's a victory for the environment. Another 22,000 hectares have been declared wilderness in the Barrington Tops alone. The Wilderness Society says the move is to benefit future generations and that to continue with the old system was not sustainable. Meanwhile, another group has criticised the changes. Hunter four-wheel drivers say they will fight the moves. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Philippa McKenny, at the time a 22-year-old teacher, was travelling along this stretch of road south of Dungog in March 1994 when her car skidded on loose stones on a newly resurfaced section of road, eventually overturning and landing in a ditch. The crash rendered Philippa a quadriplegic. Now, 2.5 years later, the New South Wales Supreme Court has awarded her more than $4 million damages.
I think we're still in shock, but we're really happy with the outcome.
The court found Dungog Shire Council and Bitupave, trading as Boral Asphalt, negligently carried out the roadworks. Both council and Bitupave denied any negligence, claiming Philippa had been driving too fast. But the court found excess stone had been left on the road and that signposting warning of the roadworks was inadequate. The decision is a huge blow for Dungog Council, which today refused to comment on the $4 million payout. It also sounds a warning to local councils everywhere. It's now clearly up to them to make sure any new roadworks are safe or face the consequences. Other councils are already considering the verdict, recognising the practice of letting traffic settle loose gravel on new services needs to be reviewed. It's a message Philippa hopes may help save lives.
I think so, yeah. I think that if it can save anyone being in a wheelchair or save someone's life, it's certainly a message that's been well sent out. Yeah.
Philippa and her husband are meanwhile planning to use the money to make her life in a wheelchair a little easier.
We're going to look at setting up a house that's much more wheelchair accessible. Have gardens that I can get into. Yeah.
The plan has been introduced following months of consultation with various fire agencies. It outlines clear procedures to be undertaken during severe bushfires, like the ones experienced in 1994. Council's Director of Health and Development, Bob Bart, says fire officers, forestry, police and the National Parks and Wildlife Service now know exactly how to respond to a fire emergency.
It's vital that all of the agencies know their role and we're not duplicating or tripping over one another when we are involved in such an emergency.
Bob Butt says the new Bushfire Control Centre at Charmhaven will also be a major asset in fighting blazes this summer. He says it's the most modern in New South Wales, equipped with state-of-the-art gear. Mr Butt says all avenues have been addressed to protect the Shire over the hot, dry months.
Well, in Wyong Shire we're definitely better prepared than we were in 1994 with our new control centre, with our plan which has been approved and with all the agencies reporting that they have carried out extensive hazard reductions in the winter months.
The Director of Health says Council had little choice but to act, given 60% of the Shire is under forestry cultivation, greatly increasing its fire risk. Jenny Crouch, NBN News.
A break in the weather allowed wheat grower Graham McPherson to assess the damage. His 2,300 hectare property was extensively damaged in just 10 minutes, 2/3 of the wheat crop flattened by hail.
Some of it would have been fist size. It was all at least golf ball size, and it was very heavy. And it only lasted 10 minutes, as I said, but it stripped trees, and it's the biggest hail I've ever seen anyway.
Mr McPherson's crop wasn't the only thing damaged in the storm. The windows of his house were smashed, the roof severely dented, while hail gorged chunks out of trees. The crop damage is a bitter pill to swallow for the McPhersons and other wheat growers who are looking to the crop as the wheat industry saviour.
Oh, well, you can't do anything about it. It's if it's part of your management or something, you can do something about it, but if it's just an act of nature, you can't do anything about it. Just got to accept it and carry on.
Another 4 wheat crops in the Moree area were completely destroyed. However, the New South Wales Department of Agriculture says crop damage was isolated. Wheat growers say they'll battle on despite the setback.
Oh, we'll just have to carry on and put another crop in next year. That's all you can do.
More storms are forecast for the area tonight. Blake Doyle, NBN News.
"90 delegates from around the globe attended the conference in Newcastle today to recognise the importance of engineering heritage and rescue it from obscurity. Such historical landmarks include railways, mining technology, roads and aircraft.
Well, I think people are seeing more and more the value of preserving engineering heritage because people are more interested and they look to the lessons of the past and where we've come from to give us a guide to where we're going.
Closer to home in the coal industry featured prominently at the conference. The city of Newcastle emerged from the discovery of coal in the early 1800s and has prospered ever since. Celebrating its heritage, engineering consultant Carl Doring says residents should not be ashamed of the industry that has helped shape the city.
People do see it as something negative. It's, coal is black dirty stuff, and the railways that brought it here, again, they're sort of noisy and dirty, but it's good honest work, and it's meant that Newcastle has had a strong economic base.
Simone Cobb, NBN News.
The first day of October has traditionally signalled the start of the prawning season, but the fleet remains moored at Carrington. Prawn catchers have decided to delay the season by a month to allow prawn stocks to grow in both size and number. The prawners also postponed the start to last year's season with good results, a record tonnage coming through the Fishermen's Co-op.
Last year we had a good year, 75,000 kilos went through the co-op, which is probably the best year we've had for about 4 or 5 years. Of course that's because of the lack of rain over that period too.
There are benefits to prawn catchers in delaying the season. Firstly, stocks will last longer, and secondly, they can demand higher prices for better quality prawns at Christmas.
They'll probably be better off in the long run. They won't have any prawns to sell in the first 4 weeks, but at least after that they'll be better quality prawns and probably a lot more often.
Recent rains are expected to flush out prawn stocks by the time the season resumes on October the 28th.
More than 85,000 Hunter residents have been laid to rest at the Sandgate Cemetery. Now the Board of Trustees is keen to attract more active clientele by opening the site up to tourists.
We plan periodic tours through the place to graves of interest and people of interest.
The railway tracks will be given a new lease of life, pathways and gardens spruced up, and a visitors centre built in the middle of the graveyard. The federal government has poured $3.1 million into the program. It's part of a DEET training scheme which will provide 180 people with restoration skills. The historical value of the site means visitors can learn from the experience and contribute something as well.
We're going to the people of Newcastle and asking for particulars on every deceased person that we can get particulars on in this cemetery, such that we can pass that information on over the years.
Work will be completed by spring next year. Vanessa Spark, NBN News.
With more than 10 stitches above his eye, Matthew Vertulo was worse for wear this afternoon, but he was lucky to get away with that.
Could have been far worse, another millimetre or two either way. Loses an eye or his life through the temple.
Matthew was playing with friends in bushland at Warners Bay near Newcastle. The teenagers had bought some soda bulbs, the old-fashioned kind once used to make soda water. The boys made a small fire and threw in the capsules. The bulbs, which contain high-pressure carbon dioxide, exploded like a bomb.
I made a noise and we've had a look and it just came straight towards me and hit me in the head.
The frightening thing is this prank is a common game for local teenagers, and the Vertulo family is warning children and their parents to be aware of the danger.
Don't experiment. Don't touch them.
It's not worth it?
No.
Shopkeepers too have been advised not to sell the soda bulbs to children. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
More than 800 children are now taking part in the early childhood music course at Newcastle's Conservatorium. It's a growing number which has forced the institution to expand.
We've grown so much over the last few years, not only in our tertiary, but also in the non-tertiary. And the biggest part of the non-tertiary course is the early childhood music program.
The Conservatorium is in the process of acquiring Northumberland House. The 60-year-old building is just a few doors down from the con, providing a handy second base for the institution. Now it's just a matter of raising the money. The Con's foundation has contributed 20%, but they're appealing to the public to collect the difference.
We rely, or are going to rely, very, very heavily on help and support from private enterprise and also the general public.
A fundraising concert will be held on the 19th of October at the Conservatorium. Hospitals in the Greater Newcastle area have undergone major changes during the past 10 years, but nothing can prepare them for the possibility of closure. It's a prospect the Royal Newcastle Hospital is facing based on the state government's acute hospitals planning study. Health workers protested against the closure in Newcastle today.
There is a very real distrust of the authorities, the Area Health Service, for example, and just what they planned.
The report says it's not economical to maintain the hospital in its current state, suggesting the services will be more effective at another site. State member for Newcastle Bryce Gaudry tried to reassure the crowd, outlining the government's position.
It's been very clear that the government will just look at this as a report to it from the Hunter Area Health Service, but it will take into account the views of the much broader community.
The Minister for Health, Andrew Refshaugi, is expected to make a final decision within the next 6 months. Meanwhile, a law lecturer from the University of Newcastle has been appointed the new chair of the Hunter Area Health Board. Carol Abella is a solicitor and former nurse who's worked in Australia and overseas. She's a legal member of the Mental Health Tribunal and is looking forward to attracting more funding to the region.
I note that we have been underfunded and the Minister recently increased funding by $6 million. I would hope in the future that the funding dollar would be greater to this area.
Musabella replaced the former chair Alwyn Druce. Vanessa Spark, NBN News.
Hayes dug deep for a solo 8-point. David there, this is away. 9 left. He gets it down to the man of the match for 9.
I never say die, even no matter what the circumstances are.
But just haven't been able to convert. And if this goes
down... Oh, Michael Johnson has this on an absolute spring tonight.
Ball at the top of the key with Cameron Dickinson. He gets it out to Derek Rucker and it takes a little... I reckon they'll try and win it. We'll see. Probably do it.
Graham Bryant readily admits he's no Steven Spielberg, but last night his documentary titled Masterpiece in Metal scooped the pearl at the Matara National Amateur Film Awards. The documentary, which looks at the work of Tom Smedden, a master craftsman on the Central Coast, won 5 awards including Best Sound, Best Editing and Best Documentary.
It's a real personal achievement. I mean, you get a lot of help from a lot of other people as well, but no, it's really rewarding.
Mr Bryant, who's been in the movie-making business since childhood, is proof that you don't need big dollars to make a quality product. All his work is done from the back room of his Cardiff home. And while many aspire to make it in Hollywood, Graham Bryant's happy doing it his way.
Well, I guess that's everybody's dream, isn't it? But maybe I'm getting a bit old for it. I don't know. I'd love to do something like that, yes. Could get really wrapped up in that.
The 11-member delegation has been touring Newcastle University's medical school for the last 4 days. The group's agenda is clear: to copy ideas and teaching techniques learned in Newcastle and implement them at Mia University's medical school. The delegation observed first-hand a tutorial and was impressed by the involvement of students in their own learning.
The way our students work as a group, the way our students really get involved in their own learning, obviously enjoy their learning, and work so well together. That has really excited them, for want of a better term.
Delegate leader Professor Toyota says teaching is far more personal at Newcastle. Teaching at his university involves lectures with over 100 students.
In our university we teach the students, but here the students learn. The teaching and learning is quite different.
Professor Toyota concedes it will be difficult to introduce a new system of learning into Mia University. Despite this, Newcastle's medical school believes the visit has been invaluable for the delegation.
They've been very perceptive and involved here, and I think they may well achieve some very good things.
Police swooped on the Beaumont Street branch within minutes of the robbery and immediately combed nearby streets looking for the offender. Shaken staff of the Building Society were interviewed and told detectives of their ordeal.
He's indicated to staff there that he had a weapon with him. However, a weapon was not cited. He was given a small sum of money and he's left the bank and was last seen heading towards the Hamilton railway station.
Police are looking for a man in his mid-30s, around 177 centimetres tall, with a solid build, wearing a navy blue sloppy joe and dark cap. It's the second robbery on a Greater Building Society this week. On Tuesday, 2 armed men escaped with money from the Greater at Warners Bay. Staff were told to lie on the floor while the robbery took place. The offenders escaped in a beige Holden Statesman sedan. Greater Building Society management have indicated they'll increase security at all Hunter branches from tomorrow. Blake Doyle, NBN News.